Hey, we're in this series called Basement Talk, but can we just talk about the music for just a second? Because, oh my gosh. Crazy. Listen, every Sunday I stand right here and I think to myself, you think they'll let me in the band? And then I hear myself singing and I'm like, nah, that ain't happening. Never happening. Hey, where are the bad singers at in the room? Who can't sing a lick? Oh, all right. If the person next to you didn't raise their hand, just say, listen, I heard you. You can't sing either. All right. But man, it's so good to be in church today. And if this is your first time with us, we're so glad that you're here. And I don't know how you got here. You know, maybe you went on Google Maps this morning, you put in PetSmart because you wanted to adopt a cat or 7. I don't know how you got here, but maybe Google Maps brought you here because you thought this was PetSmart. We don't have cats here. Although, let me say this real quick. This isn't anything to do with the message. A few weeks ago, after the service, kind of in this back area, right back there was a chair with so much cat hair left on it. We had to condemn the chair. It was not salvageable, okay? So, 2 words, lint roller. Anyway, I don't know how you got here. I don't know if you're a cat person or not. We are so glad you're here. If you're in the room, if you're online, can we just give it up for our online folks real quick? So glad you guys are with us. And I want to get into the service, but man, those baptisms were so good. Laura and Mickey and Cody, I'm so proud of you guys. That was so amazing. Laura was preaching in the baptismal. She's like, there's nothing better than Jesus. I'm like, amen, let's go home. I mean, that's it. That was awesome. Anyway, hey, we took a little breather from this series last weekend for Mother's Day, which, by the way, if you missed Mom's Day, you missed it. You need to go on YouTube and unmiss it. I think it's the craziest thing we ever did for somebody on Mother's Day. Do you think that's the craziest thing? Those who are here, I mean, it was crazy. It was fun. So if you missed last weekend, you need to go check it out. But we're back in this Basement Talk series. And if you've not been with us, the idea for this series is we're just talking about our basement. I don't know if you know this, but we are in a basement. All right. So we're just talking about our church. And I want to start out by asking you to think back to your very first job ever. Go way back. Some of you have to go 80, 90, 100 years back. All right. But think back to your first job. And I want it to be a job that the IRS knew about. My first job, I thought was cutting grass because I would go to my neighbor's house, Mr. Andy's house, and I was 10 years old. And it was probably way too young to be pushing a foot amputating device, but I would go over there. He would pay me $20, and I never one time told the United States of America, all right? So I was like a little 10-year-old criminal. So that job doesn't count. So a job that the IRS knows about. All right, first job that the IRS knows about. You thinking it? You got it? Okay, on 3, your job is to shout out what your job was. Okay, you there? Okay, here we go. Expect big things back there. Big things. 1, 2, 3. You know the only 2 things I can make out of that? I heard McDonald's and I heard Burger King. There it is. All right. I feel good already. I'm a little hungry, but that's good. My first job that I ever had, I thought was that I was a pool lifeguard. Now, the reason I said I thought that was my first job is because my wife, I don't know if she's still in the room, but she disputes that I was a pool lifeguard. And so I'm going to explain what happened. And at the end of this, I want you to vote on who's right, me or my wife. Because it always really works out well to put your grievances out in public and have the public, weigh in. So here goes. The reason I think I was a pool lifeguard, that was my first job, is because my employer said I was a pool lifeguard. Case closed, right? Wrong, okay? Because my wife, who was a real pool lifeguard, she's grilled me on this, and she was like, did you have a lifeguard shirt? No. Did you have those red lifeguard shorts? No. Did you have a Fox 40 lifeguard whistle? I'm like, no. And who are you? All right. And she's like, did you have a clipboard to log people in as they entered the pool area? I'm like, yes. Yes, I have one of those, and I check people into the pool area. It's so good. And she's like, you weren't a pool lifeguard, you're a pool attendant. I was like, no, I was a pool lifeguard. She's like, no, pool attendant, clipboard, pool attendant. And I'm like, no, I was a lifeguard. I saved lives. I saved over 5 years, one life. One life in 5 years. And I did. I saved that kid's life. All right, here's what happened. All right, little Johnny, or let's call him little Johnny, his parents weren't watching him, and he started going under. But guess who was watching him? Me, because I was the pool lifeguard, okay? And so I jumped in, your pastor jumped in, and I saved little Johnny's life because I am a lifeguard. And Stacy said, well, did you blow your whistle before you jumped in? No, because I wasn't issued a whistle. I was issued a clipboard, and I did log in little Johnny's family when they walked into the pool area. So I'm curious, who's siding with me? And you would say, I was a lifeguard. I was a pool lifeguard? Like 10 people, all right? Listen. I will remember that. I'm going to preach for 73 hours today. If you have a reservation at Rehoboth Diner, you ain't going to make it, all right? Who's siding with my wife? You think she was the one who was right? I was Yo, Sean, really, man? Bunch of turkeys, all right? So anyway, I thought I was a lifeguard, lifesaver. Anyway, I know y'all don't think I was, but today, I want to show you that I think we are all lifesavers. That we are all, whether we had a Fox 40 whistle or not, we are all in the life-saving business, all right? So turn to the person next to you and say, you're a lifesaver, even if Stacy's or Joel's wife says you're not. Look, I think every single person who calls this basement your church, I believe you are in the life-saving business. You are a part of saving lives. It doesn't matter if you're the person on the stage with a mic or not. You are a lifesaver. You are on duty, David Hasselhoff. You are. I think you're part of saving lives. Every single time you invite somebody to this church, you're part of saving lives. Every time you volunteer, we got all these volunteers back here, every time you all volunteer, you guys are part of saving lives. Bay Shore kids volunteers. Aren't you thankful for them? Come on, parents. We stick them in a room full of 37 little Johnnies, and everybody's drowning in there, okay? So, they're definitely lifesavers. When you pray for me or our church, I think you're part of saving lives. When you give here, you're part of saving lives. When you use a cat lint roller before you come in here, come on. You are part of saving lives. And our church is and will always be in the life-saving business. And the reason that is because we think our job here is to connect people to the love and the grace and the mercy of Jesus, because there's no one better than Jesus, like Laura said right in this pool. And here's why we think that. We think that when Jesus saves us, he makes us better at life and makes our life better. Come on, nobody here is perfect. Especially this section. Okay, no, I'm always going to mess with you, Sean, because you sided with my wife, okay? But nobody's perfect. But how many of you, your life is better with Jesus in it than without it? Yeah. That's me all day long. All day long. And so I'm going to tell you what our mission is here, just in case you didn't sign up for the welcome lunch, which if you didn't sign up for the welcome lunch, you can't sign up today. There's 27 people in there. I don't even know how we're going to fit that many people in there. But I'm going to give you a little spoiler alert of something from the welcome lunch, just in case you didn't sign up for the welcome lunch. So we'll put this on the screen. We're a church where anyone can go and everyone can grow. We're a church where anyone can go and everyone can grow. Now let's talk about that word anyone, because anyone for us means anyone, okay? It means a Bible thumper or a drunk person. It means the person whose life looks Instagram worthy and they got that white picket fence outside their house and the granite countertops and the 2.2 kids that look like they came out of an LL Bean catalog. And we're for the person who maybe has been divorced 13 times and is ready for more. We're a church for Pentecostal people and drunk people, and sometimes they don't see much different. We're a church for rich people, poor people, young people, old people, atheists, agnostics, Republicans, Democrats, gay, straight. There's people who may park not straight and take up 2 parking spots. You know those people? Yeah. We're barely a church for them. Barely. Park right. But listen, we're a church where anyone means anyone can go and everyone can grow because we think nobody's too far gone for Jesus. Nobody is too far gone for Jesus. And since I was picking on Sean, I'll pick on you for a second. Sean and I, we grew up together, and I have a picture of me and Sean just because I'm not going to make you stand up right now. This is last summer, man. You're looking sharper now. You're looking better as you age. But Sean, I love this guy, but what you may not know about Sean is 5 years ago when Sean would come to the church, you sat back a little further, would be your section. That was Sean's section back there. And Sean used to come here high as a kite, like, woo, gone. And Sean would sit through the service, and he couldn't even make it through the service without having to like re-up his high through my message. And that was when I wasn't preaching 72 hours like I'm going to do today because you all sided with my wife. So mid-message, Sean would have to get up because he was starting to feel dope sick, and he would have to re-up his high before he came back in here. And Sean kept on coming here because he knew we loved him, and we wanted to help him up, not beat him down when he was down. And this summer, Sean is celebrating 5 years clean. 5 years clean. It's an amazing miracle. Sean runs an amazing business now. Sean, didn't you just give your wife like some like crazy anniversary ring or something? Yeah, listen, my wife was on Facebook and like, look at this ring that Sean got his wife. I'm like, thanks, Sean. Putting us all on the spot. And in 2 weeks, Sean is going to be standing on this stage preaching a message. I mean, that is what God can do with Sean. Nobody is too far gone for Jesus. And so we are in the life-saving business. Everybody say this with me. We are in the life-saving business. So I want to take you to Acts chapter 3. We've been in Acts during this series for the most part. And the setup for this is the church had just started. So the church is fresh. Okay. It is, fresher than Ed's haircut. Okay. It is fresh. And Peter and John are walking into church one day, and they run into a guy right outside the church doors. So if this was, if it was back in the day, it would be the guy right out there on the 23 steps standing there before church began. And so that's where the story begins. Peter and John walk in, and the lame man looked at them eagerly, and the guy outside the church was expecting some money. Now, I like to imagine that he needed money because he wanted some hot wings to go to B-Dubs over here. So he wanted some money. And so Peter said, I don't have any silver or gold for you. Now, the text here implies that Peter had just been to the local Wawa and filled up his donkey with donkey gas. And donkey gas is expensive nowadays, okay? So he ran out of money. So he's like, I don't have any money for you. But what does he say? I'll give you what I have. And so he says, in the name of Jesus Christ the Nazarene, get up and walk. Now, don't miss this. They didn't give him money. This guy thought what he needed the most was money, but what he needed the most was Jesus. And so they gave him what they had, right? And right after this, this guy ends up going into the church. When they gave him what they had, this guy ends up going into church. So that sets up my first point, which is this. How to be a lifesaver. No, you have, because Peter and John just gave what they had, you have what it takes to invite someone to church. You have what it takes to invite someone to church. Now, you all are going to be skipping lunch today because I'm going to preach so long you ain't going to get lunch. But if you were able to get lunch after church today and you could go anywhere in town to get lunch, where are you going to go? Rita's. Do they even serve lunch? I like that plan. I'm going to have a mango whatever for lunch. Anybody else? Where else are you going? Nalu over in Dewey. Okay, that sounds good. That sounds good. Chris, take her there. Agave. All right, now let's just land there. That sounds pretty good to me. Because for me, I was trying to figure it out this week. If I could go anywhere in town after church for lunch, I'm between Big Fish and agave, Lord have mercy, or Chaps right over here. Listen, if you want to clog your arteries, who's been to Chaps? Who knows about Chaps? Oh my goodness, everybody raise their hand. You have a below average life expectancy if you've eaten there. A pit beef sandwich, medium rare, French fries, a bucket full of barbecue sauce. I will leave the stage right now and go there. I love some Chaps. And for years, our worship leader who wasn't here today, for years I've been telling Bo Stinking Dukes, I'm like, man, you got to go to Chaps. You got to go to Chaps. You would love it. They got the pit beef sandwich. I know, Bo, you don't mind about clogging your arteries. I've seen you eat the nacho fries, but you need to clog your arteries at Chaps. For years, Bo never went. And so 2 months ago, I was like, that's it, Bo. After church, I was like, you're getting in my car. And we're going straight to Chaps. True story. We go over to Chaps. He orders what I tell him to order, the pit beef sandwich, French fries, gets all the barbecue sauces. He takes one bite, and he's like, this is amazing. He said, why have you not told me about this place? I'm like, I told you about this place when you had your second kid. That was 3 kids ago. I've been telling you about this place. And all I did to invite you into Chaps was just tell them what I loved about it. Now, I have so many people say to me, well, Joe, I don't know how to invite people to church. You invite people to church like I invited Bo to Chaps. You just tell them what you love about it. Just be like, man, the music is insane, or the kids area is crazy, or there's this one seat that has cat hair all over it. You got to see it. And then if you tell them over and over again and they don't come, kidnap them. Like I did Bo Dukes. You just get in the car, man. But the best way to invite someone to church is just to tell them what you love about it. And you might be like, well, Joe, I can't invite anybody to church because, I don't act very Jesus-y. Do you know who your pastor even is? Have you heard my road rage stories, right? And you might be like, well, I can't invite somebody to church because what if they ask me a really hard question about the Bible and I don't know the answer?
Ask Joel.
No, listen. That'll set this up. Did you hear what Carrie said? She said, ask Joel. Listen, every single Sunday, you all ask me questions. You're like, well, Joel, explain the dragon in the book of Revelation for me. I'm like, I can't. I don't know. I do not know. But there's probably somebody in church who has a dragon tattoo. You ask that person. I don't know is a perfectly acceptable answer. You might say, well, I can't invite anybody here because, where are they going to sit? Well, that's a good question, all right? But there's always space to sit on the front row. And today, actually, we have some seats in the room. But the front row is almost always got at least 2 or 3 seats. It's the spit zone. That's why there's some empty spots. But come and sit with me. The best way to invite people to church is just tell them what you love about it. Now, let me ask you this. Who here is here because somebody told you about the basement? Somebody told you? Look at that. I love that. All right, hands down. Follow-up question. Are you mad at the person for telling you about the basement? Are you mad at them? Did you club them in the knees with like you were Tanya Harding? Did you hit them? Were you mad at them? Yes or no? No. You're glad that they told you about the basement. And you guys, let me just say this. You guys are so stinking good at bringing people to church. So good. Mike Cordry, I don't know if he's in the room, but Mike's part of our security team. And a few months ago, Mike had placed something on Facebook Marketplace, and this guy got up with him and was like, hey, can I come pick that up on Sunday? And Mike's like, that's no good, because on Sunday morning I go to church. And the guy's like, you go to church? And he's like, yeah, actually, let me tell you about it. It's in a basement, and you should come. Now, let me just say this. If somebody on Facebook Marketplace tells you to meet them in a basement, 99 times out of 100, you's dead, okay? So, don't do that. But the guy came, And the guy's been coming ever since. He was here last week, and I don't know if he's here today, but he's like Facebook Marketplace guy. Somebody who's so stinking good at bringing people is Amy right here. Oh my goodness. Amy should get a Bay Shore commission check. Yes, you will accept it. You can retire right now. You're always bringing people to church, and they come. Like, all right, did she invite you guys? Did we plan this? Nope. That's just how, so that's just crazy. So like a few weeks ago, you had some fresh victims up here, not these victims. In the middle of my message, the whole family came and sat. And so I was like, I need to meet these people. After the service, I went and talked to them, and they're like, hey, we met Amy yesterday. I'm like, got it. I don't need to hear anything else. It's crazy. You're so good at inviting people to church, and they come, and you and Butch, if you're not inviting people to come here, you're sharing our messages like online for your friends to see, and your number one favorite message to share with your friends is my Birds and Bees talk. Which out of all the messages I've preached, I don't think that's the one to introduce people to our church with, but Butch was really into that message, so that's the one they share. I don't know. But listen, the best way to invite people to church is just tell them what you love about it. And if you want to be a lifesaver, all you got to do is tell people what you love about your church. And all Peter and John did in Acts was just give this guy what they had. And that guy ended up in church, and it changed his life. And that's something everybody can do. And you are an everybody. Now let me bring you to my next point, because that word everybody starts it out, all right? So how to be a lifesaver. Remember, everybody say everybody. Everybody can help somebody. Now, have you ever seen anybody do something and you thought to yourself, I can't do that? Did that ever happen to you? Have you ever even seen someone do yoga? You ever seen somebody painting a water tower? Listen, I saw that 2 weeks ago. I would own 73 cats before I painted a water tower. I could not do that. And sometimes I look at people and I'm like, I can't do that. Now, one thing that I can do is eat some guacamole. Who loves guacamole? Anybody love some guacamole? Oh my goodness. Love guacamole. And I know I'm all about loving my neighbor, but I will fight you over the last bite of guacamole. I will go in on that last bite of guacamole. And the best guacamole in the world is not at Agave. It's my wife's guacamole. I'm saying this because I'm trying to get my brownie points back for bringing our argument up to you all. No, but my wife does make, her guacamole, holy moly guacamole. It is so good. I call it Stacy's Gringo Guac. And it is my favorite guac on the planet. And for years, she's always made it. And a couple years ago, she was like, Joel, can you, I'm just tired of can you make the guac? And I'm like, I don't know how to make the guac. You make the guac. You're the Tom Brady of guac making. I'm the Tom Brady of guac eating. And she said, no, you can make it. And so Stacy took me to her Gringo Guac master class, and she showed me how to peel the avocado, and you put that in the bowl. She showed me how to put the fresh pico de gallo in there, how to put some lime juice in there. Come on, aren't you feeling a little hungry right now? She showed me how to do the salt thing, and she does it kind of fancy. I'm like, who are you? She's like, putting the salt in the bowl. And then she showed me, this is the secret, how to cut up a fresh mango and put diced mango in the guacamole. Listen, it'll turn a Baptist into a Pentecostal. It will blow your mind. And listen, it doesn't cost $73 a teaspoon like agave, and it is the best, all right? And so did I earn my brownie points back? I don't know where wife is, but let's just say I earned them back. I'm telling you, every single person in this room could make that guac. Every single person. You might think, I can't make that. Okay, you can make it. It is so, so simple. And I tell you that because so many times we underestimate what we can do. We normally underestimate ourselves. We think, I can't do that. I don't have the skill set to do that. I can't make Stacy's Gringo Guac. Okay, I can't do that. But every single person in this room can do more than you think you can do. Every single person. The biggest limiting factor in your life is you. You. And so And that's that mindset that holds us back from being a lifesaver in other people's lives because we don't think that we can make a difference in someone else's life. So let's go back to the story. You got Acts chapter 3. Peter and John, they help this guy out. And so let's show you what happens next. All right. So right after this guy gets healed, then it says, then who's this? Peter. Okay. So Saint Peter. Okay. So we got Saint Peter here. And Saint Peter took the lame man by the right hand and he helped him up. Now, can I just do a little aside real quick? Peter reached down and he helped the guy out who was down. How often are Jesus followers and the church known for looking down on people when they are down? How often are we known for looking down and not reaching down to help somebody out, but reaching down and pointing our finger at them? I pray that we will always be the church that reaches down and it helps the person up who is down. That's the kind of church I always want us to be. Always. So Peter reaches down and helps the guy out who was down. And as he did, the man's feet and ankles were instantly healed and strengthened. And he jumped up. He stood on his feet. He began to walk. All right, then walking and leaping and praising God, he went into the temple or their church with them. Now, I love this part. This guy goes into church and we kind of read this stuff and we're like, well, that was Peter. That was Saint Peter, Pastor Joel. Saint Peter. Like, I can't do that because I'm not very saintly. I ain't Saint Peter. My wife called me Satan Peter last night, so I'm not Saint Peter. Listen, do you even know Peter's story? Do you know who this guy is? Peter is about as much of a saint as a Saint Bernard is a saint. On one day, Peter cut off a guy's ear. He cussed out a middle school girl. He denied knowing Jesus 3 times. And you probably heard some of that before. This part you might not have heard. That same night, Jesus takes Peter to a garden. And the whole time Peter's passed out in the garden. Keeps falling asleep. Peter, wake up. Do you know why Peter kept on falling asleep? Because this is right after the Last Supper. For Passover, the traditional Passover meal, you drank 4 glasses of wine. And Peter probably was an overachiever. And drank too much. And so in the garden, after the Lord's Supper, Peter is as much of a saint as I am a Steelers fan. But have you noticed that God tends to use jacked up people? Like as a pattern. Have you noticed this? We call them our Bible heroes. Let me give you an example. We'll put this on the screen. Noah got drunk and passed out naked. Abraham married his half-sister and lied about it. Hello. Moses was a murderer. Samson was a womanizer. Rahab was a prostitute. David had an affair, murdered the guy, and then married his wife. Elijah was suicidal. Peter denied Jesus. Thomas doubted Jesus. Paul was self-righteous and bullied Jesus' followers. And Mark just quit. These are our Bible heroes. Who's feeling better about yourself right now? You're just feeling a little bit better about yourself. Listen, it's so easy to think, well, Peter helped this guy because he's Peter. He's Saint Peter, and I'm not very saintly, so God can't use me. Listen, do you know what qualification God needs to use you? Do you know? Because we find out from Peter. Because after Peter goes off the rails, that one day, a few weeks later, he's sitting on the beach with Jesus, who's been resurrected. He's having breakfast with Jesus on the beach, and Jesus asked Peter one question. And the question that Jesus asked Peter isn't, Peter, do you feel real bad? The question isn't, dude, you got drunk at the Last Supper. And Leonardo da Vinci Instagrammed it forever, like you are in it. What are you thinking? That wasn't the question. The question was, and we'll put this on the screen, Peter, do you love me? It's the question he asked him. Do you love me? Do you love me? Somebody needs to hear this today. The only qualification you need to answer for God to use you is, do you love him? Do you love him? Do you love him? That's it. You know what Martin Luther said? Martin Luther said, only God can draw straight lines with crooked sticks. Tell 3 people, I'm a crooked stick. Come on, you aren't doing it. Listen, you are crooked. Tell somebody you're crooked. Listen, so don't underestimate your crooked self. If God can use Peter, God can use you. And everybody, and that's everybody can help somebody. And so when you invite somebody to church, that's a way God can use you. When you help motivate somebody who's down, that's how God can help use you. When you get behind your friend when they are down, that's how God can use you. And if God doesn't underestimate you, you shouldn't underestimate you. And here's my last point. How to be a lifesaver. Know the chain reaction you can set off. Know the chain reaction you can set off. Now, should I tell you more about another food story? It's been 2 minutes since I talked about food, so is it time? I figure we should talk more about food. Is that good? Is anybody hungry? Yes. So, how many of you have been to or know about the Old Mill Crab House in Delmar, Delaware? Who knows about the Old Mill Crab House in Delmar, Delaware? Oh, look at you guys knowing your Western Sussex. Well, that's where I took my wife last Saturday for Mother's Day, to the Old Mill Crab House. Now, if you don't know anything about the Old Mill, you know, it's too far away, so you don't know about it. All you need to know is this. To be able to afford to eat there, you have to sell your kidney. You have to sell your wife's kidney, your kids' kidneys, your dog's kidneys. You got to sell all the kidneys, all right? It is so expensive. But it was Mother's Day, so what do? You take mama there, all right? So that's what we did last Saturday. And my kids went with me on the ride to Delmar, Delaware. They're like, Daddy, we want to have crabs. And I'm like, no, you want to have a hot dog. That's what you want to have. And they're like, no, Daddy, we want to have crabs. I'm like, do you want your kidney? Because you can have crabs or a kidney, but you can't have both, all right? And the reason that is because we went and Stacy ordered the all-you-can-eat crabs. That's what I wanted her to get, so that she ordered the all-you-can-eat crabs. And if you've been there, you know this. You cannot share your all-you-can-eat crabs with anybody. If you do, there is a crab-sharing SWAT team. It is intense. They will tase you. You can't do it. There are signs, there are cameras, there are crab police. You can't share the crab meat. But the kids found out that Stacy, Mommy, is getting all-you-can-eat crabs. And so they're like, Mommy, do you just give us some of your just share it with us? And I'm like, no. You will not eat any of Mom's crab meat, because if you do, they will charge me $58.99 for each of you. And if that happens, it's going to set off a chain reaction that we cannot recover from. I will lose my job, our house will get foreclosed on, and I'll have to sell your mom's minivan. And so we cannot. And basically, I tried to get them to understand the chain reaction it would set off, kind of like Dr. Emmett Brown. You know, this is one of my favorite quotes ever. It could cause a chain reaction that would unravel the very fabric of the space-time continuum and destroy the entire universe. Kids, you got it. Don't eat mom's crab meat. I was trying to let them know that if you eat the crab meat, if she shares the crab meat with you, it's going to turn into the worst possible scenario for me. But did you know when you share Jesus, it can turn into the best possible case scenario and set off a chain reaction that is absolutely mind-blowing? Well, let me explain, okay? So this guy, Peter and John, helped this guy. And then this guy ends up coming into church. And let me show you what happens, all right? In verse 9, all right, this guy just starts walking. All the people outside and in the temple saw him walking and heard him praising God. And when they realized he was the lame beggar that they had seen so often at the beautiful gate, they were absolutely astounded. And what they do? They all rushed out in amazement. They're like, woo, this is amazing, okay? And so it looked like Walmart on Black Friday, just people going crazy, losing their mind, all because Peter and John gave this guy what they had. And it changed everything for him. And I think that's what one invite to church can do. I'm going to end with this. And spoiler alert, if you weren't here for Mom's Day, I'm going to tell you a little bit about what we did. We full on Oprah'd for one Bay Shore mom, for Lindsay Steer. And so we went crazy for Lindsay, and we ended up having her house cleaned. We gave her a whole spa day. We bought all her groceries, and then we paid off almost $12,000 of her student loan debt. Woo! It's amazing. I told you shouldn't have missed it last weekend. It was so fun. But what I didn't know when we picked Lindsay is like how many people come to our church because of Lindsay. And so when we're like planning all the details out, Kristen, our Bay Shore Kids director, was like, Joel, do you know that Lindsay is the one who invited me to church? I'm like, get out of here. And she's like, yeah, she invited me, and then my family came, and all these other people came. And so we talked about some of that in the interview video that I did with Lindsay, but it never made it into the cut last weekend. So let me just show you a piece that didn't make it in last weekend. One of the things that I learned about you is like, you're the reason like 20 people come to this church. Do you know that?
Yeah.
I don't know all the details, but you invited Kristen to come to our church, and then I think maybe Taylor to come to the church, and then somehow Brenda and her family started coming to the church, and all of them have people.
Yeah.
And now Kristen works for us. Like,
yeah,
it's wild.
Really cool. It's actually a cool story because I was 21. I'm 30 now. So I was 21. I was working at a different bar at the time, and like talking to my bar guests, we just started talking about getting back to church, because when I was a kid I went to church, and then I tried a couple different ones around here, and we were like, let's try Bay Shore all together. These people were like 50 years older than me, you know what I mean? So we were like, let's just try it out one day. So we all came, and a couple of us stuck through. There's still a few that still come here. Wow. But I would just come every week, even if I worked late, because it really brought a lot more to my life just coming. It was nice to build my relationship back with God. It's just nice to be with a group of people who all celebrate the same thing and believe in the same thing, and it's just a great feeling to happen. And then so eventually I think I maybe posted about her on Facebook, and then Taylor started to come, and then Kristen started to come, and
your sister ended up coming.
Everybody, it's really cool.
I love that story of her inviting people to church, and it all just came out of like a conversation at a bar. And after that, she invited Kristen here, and then Kristen brought her family, and then the Taylor family, and the Bratton family, and then Lindsay's sister's family. There are over 20 plus people in our church who have been, regulars here, who have had their kids dedicated here, some have been baptized here, all because Lindsay invited 2 or 3 people, and 20 plus people came here. Isn't that crazy? That's the chain reaction that I'm talking about. Like, I just think that is the coolest thing ever. And so Lindsay she's a lifesaver. And you might be like, well, Joe, I don't really like that story. Maybe you don't. Maybe you're like, I don't like it because they were in a bar. And I don't like that they were in a bar because I'm St. Karen. Listen, we're glad you're here, St. Karen. We really are. You need to hear this from me. The fact that our church is part of the conversation in the local bar scene, I wear that as a badge of honor. As a badge of honor. The fact that a group of people in a bar knew they could come here and be loved on and not judged on, I wear that as a badge of honor. And we want to grow our church not by stealing people out of the local churches. We want to grow our church by stealing people out of the bars, people. And so, listen, there is a church on every corner in Rehoboth Beach for St. Karen. There is. But I pray to God that we are always a church for saints and sinners. Because, by the way, we're all sinners. I pray that we're always the church that is a place where a believer and an unbeliever can come. I pray that we're always a church where a married person or a divorced person could come. I pray that we're always a church for maybe a drunk person or somebody, who doesn't have their life together, or somebody who's feeling like they're dope sick in the building right now. I pray that we're a church for that type of person. That's the kind of church I want us to be. Always, 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 always. So that's who we are. That's who we will always be, and we're unapologetically that. And I love our church. And so just a little basement talk. We don't have all the answers. I don't have all the answers. I don't have my life totally together. All right, we're jacked up, but we are crooked sticks, and only God can draw a straight line with crooked sticks. And so here's my takeaway for you today. I just want you to imagine who you could get to come and join us here. Who could you have come and join us in the basement? And who could you text? Who could you call? Who could you kidnap? I don't know. And get them here. And just imagine them next to you. Hopefully not in the cat hair seat, but like imagine them next to you. And I want you to know you can set off a chain reaction that can change everything for not just that person, but for a lot of people, because we are all lifesavers. Let me pray for you guys. Jesus, I'm thankful for Lindsay's story. It's such a cool story. It's a real story. It's a story that I want to see multiplied here hundreds of times, thousands of times, God. So God, I'm so thankful for that story. And God, I think we need to remember that you rescued all of us. And so if we can be rescued to be a rescuer, that's exactly what our mission is. And so God, I just pray as we walk out of this building, as we go to our different places, that we'll look for people that we can imagine being here with us. We'll invite those people so that people can come and just meet you. And like Laura said, like they can find the one who can change everything. And so God, I'm thankful for that. I'm thankful for this church and how you have changed so many lives here, God. I also pray for those who are going to welcome lunch today. I pray for their lunch they're about to eat. God, we bless that food. We're thankful for people investing in our church. We pray for everybody else who's not part of the welcome lunch that next year they will sign up early and get in on time in Jesus' name. And everybody said, Amen.